March 11, 1945, Kanoya Air Base, Kyushu, Japan. The intelligence officer's hand shook as he scrutinized reconnaissance photos from Submarine 47, revealing a discovery that would plague Japanese naval leadership until the end of the war. A concrete vessel was identified with no visible armament and heavy refrigeration equipment. Multiple small craft were seen transferring goods, but the classification remained uncertain. It seemed to be some kind of logistics ship. The grainy images taken near Ulithi Atoll contradicted everything the Imperial Japanese Navy believed about wartime priorities, as pilots at his base extracted pine root oil to supplement aviation fuel, a desperate effort involving 34,000 distillation units that would produce just 3,000 barrels in total, and mechanics were draining industrial alcohol from machinery to power aircraft. American forces had deployed what looked like an unarmed vessel dedicated solely to refrigeration. Meanwhile, 24 Yokosuka P-1 Francis bombers sat on the runway for Operation Tan No. 2. But they were unaware that they were attacking an adversary operating a million-ton floating factory, producing 500 gallons of ice cream per shift, or 5 tons daily of frozen treats, while Japanese forces resorted to pine bark for fuel. The initial clues surfaced through interrogations following the Battle of Lake Gulf in October 1944. When the carrier Zuikaku sank on October 25th, American destroyers rescued Japanese sailors from the oil-slicked waters. Destroyers Wakatsuki and Kua saved 862 officers and men while 42 crew members perished. Instead of execution, these survivors were treated medically and fed, including a strange item they had never encountered before: ice cream served in metal cups. One survivor's account preserved in Allied interrogation files read, "The American sailor brought me what he called ice cream. I had heard of this dessert but never got the chance to taste it myself. In a place where history's most significant naval battle took place, Americans were serving frozen desserts to former enemies just moments after combat." Vice Admiral Takejiro Onishi, who created the Kamikaze units, downplayed such incidents because his pilots needed to believe that Americans were weak and unable to endure hardship. Without this belief, how could Japanese resolve overcome their adversary's industrial might? The reality would shatter what little morale was left among those still fighting. The first confirmed observation of such activity came from submarine reconnaissance. In December 1944, Commander Zenji Orita aboard submarine Mine 47 surfaced near Ulithi for periscope surveillance before deploying Kit 19 manned torpedoes. From July 10, 1944 until the end of the war, Orita commanded I-47 and executed numerous special operations missions. His logs, preserved in Japanese naval archives, noted at 0630 hours, a large concrete vessel approximately 80 meters long was spotted with no armament, but heavy refrigeration equipment, on deck alongside multiple small craft engaged in transfers. The object identified turned out to be the U.S. Navy's barge, Refrigerated Large, converted from an Army concrete barge costing $1 million, equivalent to about $2 million in today's currency. This vessel could produce 10 gallons of ice cream every 7 minutes and store up to 2,000 gallons at 15 DCF. It operated continuously around the clock, producing approximately 5 tons daily. By January 1945, Japan's situation had deteriorated beyond Western understanding. Fuel scarcity was so severe that the battleship Yamato could only conduct anchor-based training exercises to conserve oil. The Pine Root Oil Program, which utilized 4,000 distillation units and mobilized 4,000 distillation, yielded just 3,000 barrels of aviation fuel from 70,000 barrels of pine oil, less than what the U.S. Navy used in a single day's operations. The 3014 3rd Naval Air Group, commanded by Captain Minoru Gender, one of Japan's last elite fighter units and architect of Pearl Harbor, struggled with severe malnutrition. From January 15, 1945, he was tasked with clearing the skies for kamikaze operations, but faced significant challenges due to his pilots' nutritional deficiencies, leading to night blindness, reduced reflexes, and an inability to endure G-forces during combat maneuvers. Captain Gender himself documented in operational reports, "My pilot's vision is failing at night. Malnutrition has robbed them of their sight. During combat maneuvers, they tremble from their frailty. Nevertheless, they confront an adversary they gain strength every day." These pilots, often teenagers with just 40 to 50 hours of flight experience, were given a final meal of rice balls, dried fish, and ceremonial sake before embarking on their one-way flights. They also wore senbari, belts made up of 1,000 stitches sewn by women for spiritual protection. Yet everyone understood that mere cloth could not shield them from anti-aircraft fire. One such poem, now preserved in the Kanoya Air Base Museum, reads, "Like cherry blossoms in spring, let us fall pure and radiant." These pilots died attempting to crash into ships near Ulithi, where USS Randolph C-15 suffered damage at 20,007 that evening. A single Francis bomber managed to hit the carrier's stern, resulting in the deaths of 25 sailors and injuring another 105. The ship was repaired within 3 weeks using 29 tons of structural steel, including I-beams salvaged from a Japanese sugar mill on Saipan. During this period, her crew consumed around 3,000 gallons of ice cream from base facilities. Ulithi held significance beyond the comprehension of the Japanese. This small coral atoll, often left off maps, had become the world's largest naval facility by March 1945, when Kamikaze attacks commenced. At this time, more than 7 ships were anchored in its lagoon, more vessels than Japan's navy ever possessed at its zenith. Including complete machine shops floating in dry docks and fleet post offices. Movie theaters showcased Hollywood films, while baseball diamonds dotted Mogmog Island. A bakery ship continuously produces fresh bread. The USS Abaton distills seawater and bakes pies. The ice cream barge manufactures 5 tons of ice cream daily, becoming legendary among American sailors. Crews from destroyers without their own ice cream equipment would send boats with empty containers to collect gallons of vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry ice cream. The barge provided equal service to everyone, from admirals to seamen, embodying democracy through dairy. Japanese intelligence found it difficult to grasp the American supply priorities. Captain Tamachihara, Japan's most successful destroyer commander who survived all major battles from Pearl Harbor to the end of the war, later wrote about his confusion regarding American provisions for comfort. Hara commanded destroyers named Amatsu Kaz and Shigor, participating in 14 significant engagements. "At first, we thought our intelligence was incorrect," he noted in his memoir, titled Japanese Destroyer Captain. Ships dedicated to making ice cream, while ours struggled to find fuel, seemed inconceivable. He questioned how any navy could prioritize such luxuries during total war. Naval intelligence scrutinized intercepted American supply manifests that appeared to be coded messages. They assumed ice cream mix referred to ammunition, chocolate syrup represented fuel oil, and strawberry topping indicated medical supplies. However, evidence continued to accumulate, revealing the reality. Every American vessel larger than a destroyer carried ice cream, and reconnaissance showed refrigerated ships at all American bases. Supply lists frequently showed allocations for morale, enhancing provisions that far surpassed the total Japanese food rations for entire fleets. Commander Mochitsura Hashimoto of submarine I-58, known for sinking USS Indianapolis on July 30th, 1955, offered the most meticulous observations from his time with the Imperial Japanese Navy. During earlier surveillance missions near American bases, he witnessed scenes through his periscope that seemed inconceivable. In his memoir, Sunk, The Story of Japan's Submarine Fleet, Hashimoto recounted, "The Americans operated floating cities replete with abundance. While we were rationing our last torpedoes and fuel by the liter, they maintained peacetime routines in wartime. This was a strength that exceeded our imagination. It was the power to remain comfortable amidst apocalyptic conditions." His executive officer also noted similar observations. "We saw sailors lining up at what appeared to be refreshment stands, ships transferring large white containers which we later discovered were filled with ice cream rather than fuel or ammunition. They fought a war entirely different from ours." During Operation Kikusui, the series of 10 coordinated kamikaze attacks on Okinawa between April and June 1945, captured pilots offered extraordinary accounts. One pilot, whose engine failure prevented his suicide mission, documented in post-war interrogation files, "During our attack, the destroyer operated normally without any signs of panic among the crew. Crew members were at their regular stations except for those manning the guns. Uniformed sailors served food as if nothing was amiss. The ship's routine continued uninterrupted." What these pilots witnessed, though they could not fully grasp it, was American confidence in their anti-aircraft defenses, which allowed normal deck operations and ice cream service to continue even during kamikaze attacks. By 1945, American ice cream production in the Pacific had reached an industrial scale that far exceeded Japan's entire food programs. At Ulithi, a Navy barge produced 500 gallons of ice cream daily, churning out 10 gallons every 7 minutes. Army ice cream barges included 3 vessels with a combined capacity of 1,500 gallons. Every carrier, battleship, and cruiser was equipped with machines for onboard production, while base facilities boasted multiple plants at each location. In 1943, dehydrated mixes totaling 35 million were shipped by the Army Quartermaster Corps. The annual military ice cream production reached 80 million gallons. Meanwhile, Japan's total pine oil output from Pioneer Root distillation units amounted to just 3,000 barrels in 1945. Japanese aviation fuel reserves had dwindled to below 1.5 million barrels by the same year. Civilian calorie intake dropped from around 2,000 pre-war levels to 160-80 daily by summer 1945. All-own rations were set at a mere 70-75 calories per day for 6 months in 1946. Due to fuel shortages, pilot training was limited to just 40 to 50 hours. For context, the total rice ration for Japanese home island forces daily was less than what American ice cream consumption was in the Pacific Theater. Admiral Nimitz, who personally approved the construction of ice cream barges, understood something the Japanese military hierarchy could not, that morale was not solely built on ideology and sacrifice. In a classified memo he wrote, "A sailor who knows his country can provide ice cream in combat fights with greater competence than one expecting only hardship." This philosophy permeated throughout the entire Pacific Fleet. A notable incident at the Coral Sea Battle on May 8, 1942, aboard the USS Lexington, where sailors raided ice cream stores before abandoning ship, became legendary. Sailors were known to scoop ice cream into their helmets before entering life rafts, a priority incomprehensible within Japanese military culture, which viewed suffering as a virtue. Japanese naval officers who discovered the American ice cream production operations were faced with a difficult dilemma. And how could they justify that while Japanese sailors received only 30-15 grams of rice daily, if available, Americans consumed an astounding 5 tons of ice cream from just one barge? Rear Admiral Matsumoto Ugaki, who oversaw battleship operations and was set to lead the last kamikaze mission on August 15, 1945, recorded in his diary after receiving intelligence reports about American comfort levels. "If these reports are accurate," he wrote, "we have fundamentally misunderstood this war. We have fundamentally misunderstood this war. Determination alone cannot defeat an adversary." The information was classified above top secret, and those who learned of it were bound to strict secrecy. Yet the truth often finds a way through the barriers of confidentiality, circulating among the fleet as whispers and rumors. Post-war investigations uncovered that these crews were manufacturing ice cream by mixing powdered milk, sugar, and cocoa in ammunition cans, using the extremely cold temperatures, 50 dF at 30,000 feet, to freeze the mixture while turbulence churned it. This level of luxury during combat, when Japan was launching fighters powered by pine root oil, demonstrated a stark disparity in resources between the two sides. While Japanese mechanics drained hydraulic fluid for emergency fuel, American air crews ingeniously created ice cream makers at bombing altitude. Operation Kikusui dispatched 10 massive kamikaze waves against the American fleet near Okinawa from April 6 to June 22, aching 46 kamikaze aircraft and 4,000 Japanese pilots losing their lives. The pilots flew outdated planes with alcohol-diluted fuel that reduced engine performance by 30%, and their final meals consisted of rice balls and water, often their sole sustenance for days. Following the massive April 6 attack involving 355 kamikaze aircraft that sank 6 ships and damaged 22 others, American fleet reports stated, morale remains high. Ice cream consumption increased by 40% post-action. The psychological effect of ice cream after combat is unparalleled. The contrast between the Japanese pilots' meager rations and the opulent American dessert production underscored the vast difference in their logistical support systems and overall war effort. It symbolized normalcy, comfort, and home. One destroyer officer was rescued from the water after his ship sank and relayed his experiences through interpreters. He had anticipated torture or execution based on how they treated American prisoners. From realizing that his country had already lost, a nation offering ice cream to its enemies demonstrated victory before any battles took place. These accounts, initially suppressed during the war, were documented in occupation records and revealed a chasm between the two sides the Japanese leadership could not have imagined. During the August 1945 occupation, American forces distributed ice cream to Japanese children who had never tasted it before. The psychological effect was significant. Everything the military government had told the people about American barbarism and weakness was proven false by this simple frozen treat. Lieutenant Saburo Sakai, Japan's surviving ace with 64 confirmed victories, first tasted ice cream at a U.S. airbase in 1946. He later wrote in his memoir, Samurai Colonel, that he finally understood why they had lost. We fought believing suffering made us strong, while they fought with the confidence of abundance and knew comfort was not weakness. Allah weakness. But a right their industry could provide anywhere. The statistical facts illustrate two vastly different types of war. The final numbers encapsulate the full story of two nations engaged in entirely distinct kinds of conflict. In 1945, American production included Navy ice cream barges capable of producing 500 gallons per day at a rate of 10 gallons per day at a rate of 10 gallons every 7 minutes. The Army also utilized 3 vessels that together could produce 500 gallons daily. Every ship larger than a destroyer was equipped with an ice cream machine. Each barge cost $1 million, equivalent to approximately $17.18 million in 204 terms. In contrast, Japanese naval rations in 1945 consisted of only 15 grams of rice per sailor when available. Pine root oil extraction yielded a total of 3,000 barrels from an initial 70,000 barrels of pine oil. Fuel quality declined to a mixture containing only 30% alcohol, which diminished engine performance. For Japanese military culture rooted in Bushido, embracing the way of the warrior and regarding suffering as spiritual purification, the sight of American ice cream ships was inconceivable. Comfort was not seen as weakness but rather as a strength multiplier. Abundance was not viewed as decadence but instead recognized as a strategic advantage. Captain Mitsuo Fushida, who led the attack on Pearl Harbor and survived the war, later converted to Christianity and became a pacifist. When asked about his transformation, he stated, "I learned that Americans fed ice cream to their enemies." He emphasized that this was not merely food, but a luxury item. This wasn't the savage foe we were led to believe. Instead, they displayed a civilization that felt secure enough in its triumphs to extend kindness and comfort even amid conflict. The deployment of ice cream ships contradicted every tenet held sacred by Japanese military culture regarding warfare. During a 1985 U.S.-Japan veteran gathering in Hawaii, the cultural divide persisted. Robert Mitchell, who served on the Ulithi base, was questioned about the ice cream barge by curious Japanese veterans still bewildered by its existence 4 decades later. Mitchell merely replied that providing ice cream to soldiers seemed like a normal part of taking care of troops at the time. He noted there didn't seem anything unusual about it. If they could build it, why wouldn't they? This casual approach to what was seen as an ordinary provision highlighted the stark contrast between the two navies more than any battle statistics ever could. Tadamasa Itatsu, a former Kamikaze pilot trainer who attended the reunion, commented, "We trained boys to die on empty stomachs. You, however, nourished and pampered your troops with full meals and desserts." This single difference encapsulates everything about the war. Dr. John Dower's Pulitzer Prize-winning book, Embracing Defeat, Japan in the Wake of World War II, posited that the ice cream barge at Ulithi was a more potent symbol of American might than an entire fleet of battleships. It conveyed, "We can afford such luxuries. We have already secured our victory. We are simply waiting for you to acknowledge it." Richard Frank, a military historian, observed, "Japanese forces went into battle anticipating glorious death. American troops anticipated a comfortable existence during combat, which reflected more than just a strategic shift. It embodied an entirely different cultural approach to warfare." At the Kanoya Air Base Museum in Kagoshima Prefecture, there is a memorial dedicated to kamikaze pilots who took off from this location. Among the exhibits, one finds a small, frequently neglected plaque that mentions American ice cream vessels. Installed in the 1990s, it offers insight into the staggering disparity faced by these aviators. The museum showcases a kamikaze pilot's last meal, a modest rice ball, pickled vegetables, and a cup of sake juxtaposed with a photograph of an American ice cream barge obtained from U.S. Navy archives. The image alone speaks volumes about the Pacific War. According to curator Tishi Yamada, "We incorporated this display because visitors, particularly younger ones, struggled to grasp how we were defeated so thoroughly. Seeing that America constructed ships solely for ice cream while we resorted to extracting fuel from pine trees clarifies that it wasn't merely a military loss but a clash between scarcity and abundance." The discovery of American ice cream ships by Japanese commanders highlights the essence of power in contemporary warfare. Japan viewed power as stemming from spirit, resolve, and the capacity to endure extreme hardship. In contrast, America demonstrated that true strength lies in alleviating suffering, fostering abundance, and sustaining normalcy even under dire circumstances. The kamikaze pilots, though noble in their sacrifices, engaged in adversary waging a fundamentally distinct type of war. While Japan derived fuel from pine roots, producing 3,000 barrels through 34,000 distillation units, America invested resources into building million-dollar ice cream barges. In the meantime, Japanese pilots composed death poems prior to their final training flights that lasted about 50 hours, whereas American sailors chose between vanilla and chocolate flavors. Victory for Japan was measured in spiritual terms, while America gauged success through industrial productivity, including ice cream production at a rate of 10 gallons every 7 minutes. The conflict concluded not because Japan lacked pilots willing to sacrifice themselves, but because they never ran out. However, when Japanese leadership grasped the true magnitude of what they were up against, it was more than just a formidable military opponent. It was an entire society so robust that it could allocate ships solely for non-combat purposes. This society was so confident in its capabilities that comfort and luxury were seen as essential components of daily life, even during wartime. It had such abundance that it could afford to be wasteful with luxury items while fighting a global conflict. In the end, the numbers tell the story best. The American fleet at Ulithi numbered 7,202 ships, while Japan's navy peaked at around 700 vessels. During one shift, an American barge produced 500 gallons of ice cream, whereas Japanese aviation fuel from pine roots amounted to just 3,000 barrels in total. While American bomber crews enjoyed ice cream at 30,000 feet, Japanese pilots were trained for mere 40 to 50 hours on diluted fuel. American sailors bemoaned the lack of variety in their ice cream flavors, while Japanese sailors subsisted on just 315 grams of rice when it was available. When Japanese commanders realized that America had ships dedicated solely to producing ice cream, they uncovered more than military intelligence. They encountered an enemy who already felt invincible. This adversary was so sure of its victory that it could indulge in luxuries while the war raged on. The million-dollar ice cream barge at Ulithi was not just a ship but a testament to a society that had fundamentally misunderstood the nature of the war they were engaged in. They infused vitality into a competition characterized by industrial wealth, yet they introduced hardship in a struggle for ease and luxury. Their defeat was inevitable,